What's going on YouTube? Username Kite562 here with another audio review for you, and it is of The Outsider for episode 29 of Tentacle Tales of Terror. Now, The Outsider is a story written by H.P. Lovecraft, not to be confused by the book The Outsiders. I don't remember the author off the top of my head, so be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content on this channel. Leaving a like on this video really does help out a lot, and I really do appreciate the comments, and I try to answer everyone to the best of my ability. So anyway, let's get on with episode 29 of Tentacle Tales of Terror, my audio review of The Outsider by H.P. Lovecraft. So for the plot, our main protagonist finds themselves trapped in an old abandoned castle. The protagonist has no memory of their past or any idea how they ended up in the castle in the first place. And I have to say my favorite quote is, "I know not where I was born, save that the castle was indefinitely old and infinitely horrible, full of dark passages, having high ceilings, where the eye could only find cobwebs and shadows." The Outsider, page 176. And for the first side note, what could this poem by Keats mean on page 176, or the beginning of this story? That night the Baron dreamt of many a woe, and all his warrior guessed with shade and form of witch and demon, and a large coffin warm, where long be nightmared. And again, this poem's at the very beginning of page 176 of my book. So my question here is, as I read this story last night before I went to bed, with the protagonist having no knowledge of this castle whatsoever, who or what could have brought them to this dark place? Was the protagonist born or created at this castle in a Frankenstein's monster kind of sense? So more on that later. And I have to say, another notable quote has to be, "I must have lived years in this place, but I cannot measure the time. Beings must have cared for my needs, yet I cannot recall any person except myself, or anything alive but the noiseless rats and bats and spiders." The Outsider, page 177. And this quote really does give an atmospheric idea of what the protagonist is going through. So, with that said, with the side note that I jotted down, the protagonist is cloaked in darkness, since the whole castle has no light sources, well, barely any, since I assume that there's some sunlight, but it's not really mentioned too much. So, for the second side note again, the protagonist is cloaked in darkness, but they seem to effortlessly navigate this massive castle, all at once after an infinity of awesome sightless crawling up the concave and desperate precipice. I felt my hand touch a solid thing, and I knew I must have gained the roof, or at least some kind of floor. The Outsider, page 178. And I wrote down that quote as a side note since I just wanted to take note of the situation that I was reading into, but all in all, this is a really solid story. So, for side note number 3, pages 179 and through 181 have to be one of the most wonderfully built-up moments in this story. And with that said, my final thoughts, it was a great story with great descriptions of the environment the protagonist finds themselves in. Even though the twist was very predictable, this reminded me of the scene of Frankenstein's monster revealing its presence to his new bride that has just been brought to life, which was a wonderful memory to revisit in my eyes. And when I say Frankenstein, I mean the Junji Ito adaptation. So that scene where Victor Frankenstein revives the bride with his beloved's head, the late Elizabeth, who got executed by guillotine, that's just the memory that came to my mind. But anyway, enough of the rambling. That was my audio review of episode 29 for my Tentacle Tales of Terror series. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the content on this channel. This is Kite562 signing out, and as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, everybody. Later.